Coming at you live from the heart of Texas, it's the 16th Street Racing League here on RaceSpot TV. Richard Whiteford joined by Paul Jenkins and Randy Chenoweth, coming to you live now as qualifying is underway and the Verizon pre-race show. This is, of course, 16th Street Racing League. We're brought to you, of course, by IndyCar and Racer Magazine, here for you on iRacing Live and our IndyCar.com's YouTube channel. Well, guys, 10 minutes to go now. We're just doing the final qualifying for the drivers here today. 3 rounds to go. Things are beginning to get really exciting here in the championship.
Yeah, things getting very tight here, Rachel, and looking at the times coming in so far for qualifying, still early. Looks like a very, very tight field, and we're going to have some exciting racing here today.
Well, that will be incredibly interesting to see, and I'm sure there's a story about people's exes getting left in Texas, but well, this is 3 to go now. Everything counts, and people are going to be hoping those exes don't come back to bite them at some point here. Of course, 2 more rounds to go. We have Watkins Glen next week, and the 16th Street Indianapolis 500. It won't be in the month of May. It will be in 2 weeks' time, on or around the 29th of December. So we're going to have an incredibly exciting couple of rounds to go. Of course, it's been very tight in those points as we're coming towards the end now of this series. Matt Pavelski is leading the points. He is sitting there on 271 points. Behind him, 40 points back, Tim Holgate, 232. So pretty big gap there for Pavelski, but that's about a round drop, which we have not counted. So this is much tighter on the ground. Of course, the guys who've won races so far, we've had Tim Holgate, PJ Sturgis, Alex Simpson, Tim Doyle, Brandon Trost, and Nigel Marneef. Of course, your winner last time at Sonoma with a stellar run for Marneef. Very good on the road courses. Perhaps not as big a superstar on the ovals. We have to look for some of those other guys to come through.
Well, this is where Marneef really needs to try and step it up on the ovals. Of course, you need to have good results and everything, but even if you're not an oval specialist, you need to be able to finish up in the top half of the field in order to be a contender. And Marneef is certainly facing up to a battle. And we're at a track now that plays very solidly into the hands of a Tim Holgate or a Brendan Trost or a Tim Doyle. And this is a good opportunity for Holgate and Doyle and Simpson to make, or rather, Holgate, Doyle, and Trost to make some headroads into closing that gap a little bit and making a run of the championship. This is a very important day here for these guys.
It certainly is, and we know, of course, that Holgate involved in an incident at Milwaukee, and he didn't actually run at Pocono, so he's behind really in the points. He could do with a win, and he's had some oval wins so far this year. He needs another one. Drivers at Tim Doyle, though, he did win at Milwaukee. He has a strong chance, of course. Randy, tell us about what guys are doing at the moment in qualifying.
Qualifying is looking pretty quick. We got Trost on pole. He's the only one to break into the 23.4 bracket. Everyone else is in the 23.5s and down. Top 3 right now is Trost, Walters, and Austin Espeet. Things are looking tight. Actually, Walters and Espeet have run the identical lap times of the 23.518.
Looking incredibly close, as we always expect. Of course, Texas, a very tricky oval. We're here for 148 laps tonight, of course. So it's going to be a long race for these guys. Expecting that track to change somewhat as we go onwards, and the cars lay down rubber, of course, and you'll see the temperature rise. So it's going to be really a changing game. We've, of course, had Pocono, 2.5 mile oval, but more like a 3-corner road course. We've had Iowa, a fast 1 mile oval. We had the flat mile at Phoenix, and we've had Milwaukee. So realistically, guys, this is our first 1.5 mile racetrack, and it's going to be a very different game to what we saw at Iowa, and very different to the flat tracks of Phoenix and Milwaukee. Pocono, complete oddball. We know the racing at Texas can get ferocious. We also know it can be a low-line specialty track. Paul, just tell us how difficult it is to race around a place like Texas.
Well, when you take a look at a track like Texas, it looks deceptively simple. It's an oval, it's 1.5 miles, it's a wide track, and it looks to the layman observer like there is a lot of room. But make no mistake about it, there is a definitive line on this track, and a combination of factors can make racing here extremely difficult. We have the powerful draft. These guys really are not going to be able to get away from each other. It's going to be tight racing the entire night. And, of course, when these cars get close to each other, anything can happen. Of course, the tire manufacturers have changed the compounds we're working with, and this is going to be the first real run on the new compounds of the tires. These guys are still trying to figure that out. So there may be a lot of adjustments being made during the race. Of course, the track is going to be changing, as we spoke about before, and there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes here at a place like this. And of course, we're driving cars on the edge here. You've got a lot of drafting, a lot of aerodynamics at work here. So this is an extremely technical track, even though it looks simple.
Very much so, and just to fill that in for our viewers, of course, this 16th Street Racing League series is powered by iRacing.com, and it's a constantly evolving racing sim. We talk about the tire manufacturers changing. That actually happened. The IndyCar has actually recently been upgraded to a new compound, so these drivers and teams are working out how to get these cars working better. The car has changed completely for them, so of course a lot of work for these guys to do behind the scenes in the garage. Randy, Paul, it's going to be a really big one. So of course we're running out of time now. We're going to go to quick commercials before we head to the booth for the grid and your race coverage. This has been the Verizon Countdown to Green. I've been Rachel Whitefoot. I've been joined by your booth crew, Paul Jenkins and Randy Cheneth. We'll see you after the break, and we'll be ready for that green flag.
What is it about speed? Do these rivals chase speed because they can? Or because they can't help it? IndyCar, the heart of racing. Go to IndyCar.com for live timing and scoring, upcoming race details, and to join the conversation.
And folks, welcome back live here at Texas Motor Speedway for the 16th Street IndyCar race. Round 9 here at Texas, about to set off here, and Randy Chenoweth here in the booth. Talk to me about this qualifying. Extremely tight field so far.
Oh yeah, this is an extremely tight field. Brandon Trost is looking fast. He's the only one that's really offset himself with that front group, but from about 2nd back to about 8th or 9th, we're talking about gaps under a 1/10 of a second, which, at 220 plus miles an hour, that's actually is a decent distance, but in the top 3, we have 2 people that have run the exact same lap time, and then dropping back to 4th, he's only 0.06 of a second off. Things are looking really close, things are looking really tight, and that's really making things interesting the way this race is going to play out.
Okay, very good. And 3 cars failing to qualify. Christian Steele, Randy Krosno, and Dan Liensch failed to put up times. They'll start from the back of the field here. And looking at the times here, we'll look to the grid here. Brandon Trost on the pole, 23.442, the only driver to break the 0.4 mark. Bradley Walters, Austin Espetit, 2nd and 3rd with exactly the same times. Bradley, of course, puts that time in 1st, gets the 2nd spot on the front row. Austin relegated to 3rd. Tim Holgate, 23.524. Jennings in 5th, 23.551, just behind Vic Caudle, 23.557. Joe Flanagan over here, 23.608. Matt Pawlowski, 23.611. Joe Branch, 23.613. And Michael Peters rounds out your top 10, 23.614. And the rest of the drivers coming up on the screen here. And Randy, if these times are any indication of the kind of race we're going to be looking at, this is going to be quite a show.
Oh yeah, exactly like Rachel and we were talking about during the pre-race show. This new tire compound, a lot of people, they've gotten probably time to really tinker for one thing, either qualifying or race. So it's going to be interesting to see if people are maybe just fast during qualifying, if they fall back during the race. Maybe see some of those guys towards the back put more work into the race setups, the race aero trims, and if that's the case, we could see some people in that top 10 and maybe even back to that top 15 work their way through the field over this 140 lap event.
Well, let's talk about a little bit about strategy while we're working here. 142 laps we're looking at for the race here, And I believe we're trying to do the math on how many stops. I think we're looking at 3 or 4, Randy. Is my math correct on that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be probably about a 3-stopper.
So, if this goes green, we're talking things like tire wear, tire heat, and of course, that's going to be a big factor, especially considering the weather here. Track temperature is 91 degrees. The sky is mostly cloudy at the moment. Air temperature is 77 degrees. And the winds out of the northeast at 7 is going to be pushing these guys out of turns 3 and 4. Well, out of turn 3, and turns into a headwind down the front stretch. So a lot of adjustments to be made here. Again, we're talking about a lot of unknowns in this car with the new compound. These guys have not had a lot of running time. The service has been up and down a lot with the new with the new updates and trying to perfect all of this. So it'll be interesting to see who's done their homework here as we're on the pace lap.
Yeah, it definitely is. Pace car is rolling out of turn 2 now. Field is getting ready to set themselves up and get roaring for these 140 laps here at Texas Motor Speedway. Paul, who's your prediction to win this race?
Well, I really like the way that Trost is looking. If he can keep clean all day long, I think we're going to see good things from him. You know, Tim Holgate, always a threat, but I think the dark horse in this one is going to be Vic Caudill. You know, he's been improving and improving. I think it's only a matter of time, and this may be his race.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point there. I think I'm going to give it to Tim Holgate. He's always experienced, and he's always a front runner on these ovals, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens here as the pace car gets ready to dip off. And now the field in command of Brandon Trost, who gets an early jump and goes right at the green flag. And we were racing here at Texas Motor Speedway as they go roaring down into turn 1. Trost gets a pretty good jump there and a pretty comfortable lead heading down in the first set of corners, Paul.
And Bradley Walters looks like you got caught napping a little bit there. Austin Espetit and Brandon Trost immediately setting off to a fight here, with Espetit making his way towards the front. He's going to try, but he can't quite make it stick out there on the outside. Little bit early. Brandon Trost with those cold tires dominating on the lower line. That may change relatively quickly. Meanwhile, Walters and Tim Holgate and the gang are closing quickly, so that lead is going to be short-lived. The rest of the group always looks like a very clean start here for us. It's nice to see these guys getting a good start. We got Paul Jennings over here in, where is he at? Bradley Walters in 5th, so Vic Caudill in 6th. Looks like he's trying to make a move on Walters here.
Yeah, very clean start indeed, and that's always good to see the start of these races with the field bunched up. You can see a big one happen earlier than you ever wanted it to be, but right now it looks like we're getting into that single kind of train racing that Texas is kind of famous for here. Just with the aero push, the outside looking at very difficult to work as Austin actually tries to make it work, and Tim Holgate actually passed him down around the inside of the. Now Holgate's looking to the outside of Brandon Trost headed down into turn 1. It looks like he's going to dip back into the line here instead of trying to lose that spot back to Austin. But he does get a run on the exit of turn 2. We'll be able to see if he can make something going into 3 and 4.
We're going to see this a lot here, Randy. We're going to see the guys who are going to try and do a little bit of a switch-o, change-o, maybe a little over-under to try and make this work with the draft. Draft very powerful here, but if you get caught out behind a car, you're going to find that aero push is going to really affect that car. And it's a compounding problem. Not only do you lose immediate grip, but you also start to work really hard on that right front tire. Heats that tire up a lot, and you can see that if you abuse these tires early on, and this really has a green flag feel to it, you're going to find yourself in some pretty dire straits towards the end of your fuel run.
Yeah, the last thing you want to do is burn these tires off as fast as you're going, because that's a good way to get you going to the back of the pack. It looks like Tim's just looking for that clean air on the exit of the corners. Looks like he doesn't want to really suck up too close to Brandon Trost and make something happen too early here. Austin Espetit has dropped back to 4th place and has actually lost the 3rd place spot to Paul Jennings. And he actually looks like he's going to fall back to the grasp of Vic Caudill as well. Austin maybe having some early race troubles, maybe someone who put more focus into their qualifying setups rather than a race setup. Paul?
So Espetit running into some early trouble here. He's frantically making adjustments in that car to try and see if he can't find a little bit of speed. Maybe a calculated move here by Espetit, trying to stay out of the front of the pack, trying to take care of his car a little bit. And looks like Holgate, while we were chatting here, has managed to wrest the lead away from Brandon Trost and is trying to make that work. Meanwhile, looks like Paul Jennings and Brandon Trost are both kind of conspiring to work on Holgate here. The three of them. We got a yellow flag.
Yep, I'm looking back to see what happened here. actually unsure what happened.
Looks like Terry Mattinson is part of this problem here. Trying to go back to take a look here and see what happened. Looks like we had a car in the grass. It was Niles Anders, I believe, ended up in the grass, slow off the track, kind of backed things up a little bit, and I think it looked like Terry just tried to avoid him and clipped the outside wall and spun the inside, destroying his car.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate incident for Terry there. I'm sure that he was looking to make his way forward, but that's an early race-ending incident there for him, and I'm sure he's pretty gutted about that.
Yeah, very disappointing for Terry here. I think he was looking for a good result. That car is definitely finished. Looking at it in the pits, it's missing a couple of corners, so hopefully he's all right. And meanwhile, back into the yellow flag now. We're 9 laps in. Now here we go. We're going to start thinking about maybe a split strategy. Keep an eye on, see who comes in, who stays out. Looks like Lise Holgate's going to keep the car out. Maybe Brennan Trost is going to bring it in. So Trost, Caudill, and I think that's Espety are bringing their cars in for service here, right, with 10 laps to go. So already we're working on some different strategies here.
Yeah, this is going to make things very, very interesting as we have, looks like about the majority of the field is coming down to pit here. I'd say roughly 3/4. And really the only people that are sitting out who are running up front are Tim Holgate and Paul Jennings. So that's going to make things very, very interesting here as we, into the deeper parts of this race. But we'll have to see how this pans out. Not exactly sure what kind of fuel run we are going to be looking at here, but we estimated probably about a 3-stopper. So 10 laps, I mean, that can make a big difference as we get more cautions down in the later stages of this race.
So the cars that stayed out, we had Jennings and Holgate and Jennings, and Powalski looks like he stayed out also.
I think they were the only 3.
And they're the only 3 that are staying out. So 10 laps on these tires, and I think we're going to have to see. This is going to be a crapshoot. Fresh tires on Brendan Trost, we know that he's aggressive and fast. And with the new tires, we're going to try and see if he's going to make some moves really early on. But you have to keep an eye on this as this goes on, see if this split strategy is going to work out for these guys. Going back down through the field now, we've got Holgate, Jennings, Powalski, Trost, and Vic Caudill making up your top 5. Espetich, Flanagan, Joe Flanagan, Bradley Walters, Joe Branch, and Eric Davis, your top 10. So Vic, my dark horse, with the fresh tires right behind Trost. We'll see if these guys try and follow along here and see where we're going with this. Meanwhile, I think... go ahead.
You call him a dark horse, but he was making his way forward there, but Paul, I don't think he's too much of a dark horse the way he's running right now. He's held himself up there pretty good, and he's on these new tires. I think Vic really does have a real chance at this race right here.
Going down the backstretch, pace car should be in this lap, so we're half a lap to green flag racing, and of course, again, we're doing the single file thing here, so it's going to be interesting to see how these guys all try and sort out and get back to racing here. Any ideas here right before we go?
I think Holgate's going to actually prove us wrong and be able to make these old tires work. I just have a feeling.
Pace car coming around turn 4 now is going to make that left turn into the pit road just about now. Holgate's holding. Now he's on the gas. A little bit of a wiggle there with Holgate. Couldn't get the power down like he wanted to, and didn't quite make the escape he wanted to from Jennings, and everyone else is hot on his trail here. So from about 1st to 10th, these guys started off, and it looks like Espety is going to try and make a move on Jennings here. We'll take a look. No, it's not that. It's not Espety. Espety's here comes Trost in those fresh tires. Caudill trying to follow along, and you can see those fresh tires are definitely making a difference here.
Oh yeah, those tires are making a huge difference for Brandon Trost. Already passed our points leader Matt Pileski, getting past Paul right now. And he's already in the 2nd place. He went to 4th to 2nd place in the span of a lap. And he's now already hunting down Tim Holgate. And he has a run on him, going down into turn 3 down the back straight. He's on the inside, and look at that. A lap and a half, and Brandon Trost goes from 4th to 1st. Those new tires are really working for him.
But we'll see what happens when these guys get going. Of course, Holgate 10 laps lighter on the gas. So, of course, Brendan Trost being up front, it's going to be a little bit easier on those tires, keep things a little cooler. And we'll see how this goes, but it looks like Holgate is not going to be satisfied with that. Going to make a move on the inside, taking a look, see if he can make a stick down there, and he does. Takes that lead right back from Trost, and we're back and forth with the cat and mouse game. Meanwhile, Vic Codell looked like he was going to give it a shot, and then decided against it. He was going to hang out back there in fifth and watch the show from back there. Probably a smart move. So first to fifth covered by about 0.3 of a second. Here comes Trost again. We're going to see this happen a lot, back and forth.
Yeah, we certainly are. Trost and Holgate are two of the most experienced people when it comes to this oval race thing, and they're pretty good at it. They seem to be at the front every single week. Vic, I think, is also playing a smart game here, just sitting back, not getting too antsy about it, although he's looking to the outside of Matt Poleski here, but it doesn't look like he's going to be too aggressive with anything. Austin's sitting back in sixth. We have Joe Flanagan and Eric Davis. Eric Davis is on the outside of him, going through turn number 4. Looks like nothing's going to come of that just quite yet, but it'll be interesting to see how that battle unfolds over the course of the event here, Paul.
But you can't be too, Vic Codell's looking in his rearview mirror. Who's coming up? Austin Espartine group. So while these guys are dicing around and trying to take it easy, there's a sense of urgency suddenly from Vic, and of course he's feeling that. He's up to fourth, and he's going to try and move up and put some cars between him and this group that's going to catch up. So the 5-car pack is suddenly turning into a 10-car pack with the other 5 guys coming up behind them, and business is about to pick up here.
Yeah, I think they're certainly going to get busy. We have also, I believe we had a car in the wall off of turn 2. That may have, I'm not sure what though. I believe it was Espartine. Yeah, he has some damage on the right side of that car. That's the exact opposite thing I'm sure he was wanting to happen, as he's now starting to slicing and dicing with this front pack. He's going to have to figure out if that damage is terminal or not.
So Espartine folding up the car early. On a track like this, you do not want to be seeing any damage on your car. As any sort of, and you can see he's already starting to get overhauled by Eric Davis. And so things already starting to go sideways for Espartine. Like I say, any sort of aerodynamic disadvantage here, you bend up the car just one little bit, and you're going to have a long day out there. So perhaps next pit stop, Espartine can make some changes. Meanwhile, things are really getting crazy up front. Trost, well, let's see here. Jennings had the lead for about a second. Then Trost went ahead and took it. Meanwhile, Caudill's up there, and it's we're lap 21 here, and things are already starting to get nuts up front.
Oh yeah, this is fun to see. We're not seeing one car just hold the lead throughout the entire event, which is sort of something that's happened in the past. They're just slicing and dicing and just trading the lead back and forth, and now Jennings goes to the front again, and then Trost dips back in line just in front of Vic. Oh, he almost got the nose off of Vic. That looked like it was going to be really close. Looked like Vic got out of it a little bit, and Trost decided to roll back up the track. Probably a good decision, as Tim Holgate gets a big run on the outside, and looks like he's just going to drive right around the outside of Vic Caudill. I think Vic lost a lot of momentum when he lifted for Brandon Trost there.
Absolutely did, and that's the thing about this track. It's a lot of momentum. If you have to lift or tap the brakes, you're going to find yourself getting trained pretty quickly. It takes a long time to spool these cars back up to speed, and you lose a lot of spots just by making a decision like that. So it's a fine line between staying in it and backing out. We're seeing, it's early, we're seeing a lot of give and take here. These guys are not really pushing the issue with each other, but I fear that once we get done with a couple of pit stops, these guys are going to give the gentlemanly conduct is going to go out the window very rapidly.
Oh yeah, it's oval racing and it's open wheel oval racing. You can't always be a gentleman. You need to be smart, but you need to know how to be aggressive when you need to be. And I think right now everyone is just playing the card of, there's another 100 laps left. I think Austin Espartine just got the wall again going down the back straightaway. Just further compounding his problems he already had.
Yep, taking a look at this now, and I don't see any additional damage to that car. Does not necessarily mean that's not what happened, though. These cars with all the suspension hanging out of the car, you tweak it just one little bit, and you might not see it from the outside, but that car will drive radically different. And quite possibly, this is the problem that Espartine is having. Now he's deranged that car enough to where it's just wanting to push up into the wall. He's back in the pack. He's got aero push on top of that. Just a very bad day for Espartine. Might want to think about some changes he's going to want to make to the car to at least try and keep it competitive. we're talking about the points thing too. Aston SPT, he's where are we at? 20th in the points, so not really too much of a factor. Really kind of running for posterity here, but you want to make sure that you have a good finish because you never really know what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, I mean, last few races of the season, he's got a big hill to climb, but it's not an impossible hill to climb. Obviously out of it in terms of the championship, but maybe if he had a couple really good finishes, he get himself up into the top 10. But doesn't look like that's going to happen. As right now, it's just seems to be business as usual from what we've been seeing up front. Tim Holgate's gotten the lead back. Trost is starting to get that momentum to make a move, but actually Paul Jennings is going to be the one to move up on the inside of Trost here. We'll be interesting to see if he's able to make this hold.
Jennings looks like he got a little bit loose on the exit of turn 2 there, and I think that he's gonna, trying to pinch it down to the bottom of that track is starting to get more and more of a dicey proposition as you get further and further into the tire wear here. So Jennings thinking maybe he'll hold that bottom line and get around Trost, but lost a little bit of momentum when that back end started to sneak around on him. He's thinking better of it and gets back in line here, trying to reassess the situation, see what he can do inside that car to make those kind of moves stick. Of course, Jennings knows that Holgate up there did not make a stop, and neither did he. So, he's got to think about the big picture here in terms of pit stops and things like this. Looks like Jennings kind of trying out the top line a little bit. Meanwhile, Holgate drives around Trost and takes the lead, but Trost is having none of it, sticking right there and not quite.
Yeah, Trost.
Go ahead.
Trost is known for being one who always likes to get to the front and lead the pack. But I'm seeing a lot of, like we were talking about earlier, we're seeing a lot of people moving around their lines, I think, trying to figure out what works with these tires and where it doesn't. We're not seeing people just stick to one line, which is normally what we see. We see a lot of moving up the track right now.
3 factors could be contributing to that. Of course, we have tire wear. These tires, as they get, as you put more and more miles on them, the grip becomes less and less, and it becomes harder to hold that bottom line, and you may lose some energy. Second factor, rubber on the track. We know that these guys, as they drive around the track, they put more rubber down. Here comes Trost, going to make a move on Holgate again. Holgate just goes ahead and lets him through. He knew that he got a run on him, just not putting up the fight right now. So rubber on the track, another factor. The more rubber on the track, the slippier it gets. So as the race goes on and you start rubbering up that bottom line, you may find more speed up high. You may find more grip up high. Third thing, track temperature. It does change. As these cars roll over this track continuously, the track temperature starts going up. As the temperature goes up, the grip goes down. Well, you might find cooler track outside. So we're seeing the inside line working now, but that picture may change as the race goes on.
Yeah, that's certainly the truth. As that grip level changes, and also as we get yellow flags and that surface gets cleared back off, the track could almost revert to an older state as it was earlier in the race. That'll be interesting to see. But the way we're racing now, doesn't look like we're going to get a lot of yellow flags here. So what's really going to be interesting to see is how that 10-lap difference affected all these cars. Obviously, we have Holgate, Pileski, and I believe it was Jennings Vic all on those old tires. So it'll be interesting to see how the fuel really changes that. The old tires don't really seem to be affecting them in terms of pace with Holgate. Drives right around Trost going back to the lead there. But what do you think we're going to see happen over the course of this race if it stays green, Paul?
Well, we're going to see. Of course, we know that Jennings, Pileski, and Holgate all gambled on the split strategy. And if this stays green, that may not work out for them. Here comes Trost again around Holgate. Holgate's got to be thinking about pits here very shortly. So we're going to be seeing pit stops from those guys who didn't take fuel on the last yellow very, very shortly here in the next couple of laps. So we'll keep a real close eye on that and call that when it happens. But, the split fuel strategy, these guys are kind of banking on the idea that the race is not going to go green. So we'll see. And again, I don't have the exact calculations. We'll know more once these guys get into these pit stops here and figure out what the fuel range is. Real quickly, we're going to go through the top 10 here. It's changing dynamically. Holgate just for the lead now. Brendan Trost second, Jennings third, Pawelski in fourth, Caudill in fifth. With Joe Branch in sixth, Joe Flanagan in seventh, and Eric Davis in eighth. Brian Simpson and Bradley Walters round out your top 10. And all of these cars within about 3 seconds of each other. So, well, 4 seconds of each other. So these guys are kind of stringing it out a little bit here as these tires are wearing down a little bit. Not the kind of dicey racing we're seeing from the beginning on the fresh tires. The guys are kind of assessing the situation, seeing where the cars are going. Of course, the exception of Trost and Holgate, who are changing positions every corner. But you guys are assessing the car now, trying to figure out what kind of changes they want to make to get the car dialed in for the second half of the race.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of changes get made, as well as we're looking through the back of the field. We actually have Christian Steele and Danley Ench, two of our non-qualifiers, are just side by side. Danley Ench actually got scary loose just now coming off of turn number 4. And that would have certainly brought out a yellow if he hadn't have made that stick. But good driving by him to actually keep that thing on the racing surface.
Absolutely, and you know, trying to eke out that little bit more speed, you might say take some chances with the in-car tools, and you know, it wouldn't be well. We'll talk about those after the first set of pit stops here, because I think we're going to be looking at these awfully soon here. Just keeping an eye on Holgate here to see what he's going to do, and yeah, I think that you know, a lot of this is going to come down to what these guys in the back, there's a sense of desperation sometimes. You start making some adjustments, and you can go too far on that, and you won't know till the next corner. You know, it can catch you out. So it was a good catch by Danley Ench to keep that from spinning on him. I believe we may be seeing Holgate coming in this next time around.
We're to keep our eyes on our cameras on that, because we have Holgate and we have Jennings dipping down to the inside, dipping into the apron, so they are certainly coming down pit road here. Pileski is staying out though, so maybe he's getting some better fuel mileage here, or maybe Holgate and Jennings just hit a mark.
There's a car at the entrances of pit road. That's Michael Peters. Michael Peters desperately trying to get that car squared away. Almost got in the way of Holgate. He was starting to move. Holgate probably saw his life flash before his eyes for a second there, but safely into pit road now. Holgate comes up to his box, and of course Jennings right behind him, and it's going to be a race to see who gets in and out first. Both of them up on the jacks, hit the spots nicely. Timer running on these guys. We're taking a look here, and 4 tires and fuel. Holgate gets it out first, kicks that back end out, and gets a great exit out of pit road. Jennings not far behind. Let's see how they kind of join back up. This can be a dicey proposition as itself. You're on a flat, unused portion of the track. The car can get very, very squirrely down there, and it looks like an expert job of doing that. But you'd be amazed how much time you can lose just trying to get out of pit road and get that speed back up. You can't get back on the main racing line because, of course, there's cars out there. So you have to be extremely careful how you drive that car around. Just to get back on the racing surface. And a lot of races can be won or lost there. You can lose several seconds.
Oh, certainly is. Now we have Matt Pileski is actually exiting the pit road. Holgate manages to get around him pretty comfortably, although Pileski will be up to speed here probably in the next couple seconds, and that gap is going to come down. Jennings seemed to have lost actually quite a bit of time on pit road there. He's quite a ways further back from Holgate than where he was when he actually entered the pit lane, so maybe, like you were saying, he may have struggled a little bit more coming off that pit road and getting back onto the racing surface. Now, considering when they pit, we should be seeing the Trost and the rest of the field coming down to pit here in about the next 7 to 8 laps. So that'll be interesting to see how they're able to actually work, because obviously at the start of this run, Holgate and Pileski and Jennings, they were all on the light fuel load. They were able to keep it up there, but right now the other side of the field is the people with light cars right now. They may be able to stretch a pretty sizable gap right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Looks like Trost does have a pretty commanding lead at the moment. That's not always a good thing, though. You're talking about a draft track. So Brendan Trost running laps in the 23.9 area right now. It looks like last lap for Caudill was 24.115. May have been getting harassed a little bit back there working in some traffic, but so Trost actually is, right, pretty much a 24 flat, just a tick under. So Trost keeping that speed up, flying around alone out there. So maybe a really good call by Trost to keep that car out there and see what it does. Let's take a look and see what guys like Holgate are doing for lap times. Last lap, Tim Holgate, 23.980. So about the same speed. Holgate's got a friend in Matt Pavelski. So Holgate and Pavelski now kind of pacing around with each other. And, of course, you were talking about Paul Jennings far back. You know, he really did not get a good jump out of pit road, and I think he may have suffered a little bit trying to get around there. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. He's kind of hung out alone right now. See if he can get another dance partner and get some drafting work. Try and get himself back up there. But a lot of work left for Paul Jennings to do.
Yeah, Brandon Trost is on pit road right now. It'll be interesting to see how he's able to get himself out and how he's able to run on that full field tank and those new tires. Coming down now, pulling himself into that front pit box because he was our he actually missed his box. He hit the wall. That could be drastic for Trost. I don't see any damage on that car, but he is in that pit box at a weird angle. He might tap the wall again on exit. Actually, he gets out pretty safely to make sure he doesn't do just that, and he lost himself a lot of time right there, Paul.
That could cost Brandon Trost heavily. Not to mention, he did tap the wall with that left front wheel, and remains to be seen if any damage was done at all to that car. Very, very slowly, just sort of coasted into it. But, he did lose about 2 or 3 seconds trying to get that car squared back up. And
speaking of lost time, just look who's right behind him.
Here
they just come charging like a train.
Pavelski and Holgate overrunning now Brandon Trost. Can Brandon Trost get the speed back up? Looks like he is up to pace now. Of course, the fresh tires, he is going to be able to hold on to that bottom line. So, but you see that Trost had that commanding lead. Suddenly now it's nothing, and now we've got a 3-way battle between Trost, Pavelski, and Holgate for what will become the lead when the rest of the pit stops come in.
Yeah, I mean, that's just little mistakes like that or just make the difference. You know, if he had gotten into his pit box cleanly and everything else had been the same, you know, he would have had probably a 2 to 3 second gap over these guys right now. But that small little mistake, and suddenly instead of having a 2 to 3 second gap, you know, suddenly there's no gap at all, and really we're going to probably go back to seeing them all slice and dice and trade the lead back and forth with one another like we were seeing in the earlier stages of the race. I'm sure that's just heartbreaking for Brandon Trost right there.
The way this works, everything counts, and amazingly enough, you know, we're talking about these cars buzzing on the track at better than 210 miles an hour all the way around, 220 in the corner entries. So these guys are flying around, but really, you think about it, the biggest decisions and the biggest movements on the track are when the cars are going the slowest. Right through pit lane, right out of pit lane. Looks like Pavelski's going to take a look on the outside of Trost. Not sure if Pavelski's more thinking about making a move or more taking care of the car. You see Pavelski's taking that higher line and may have figured out that that's a lot better on the car in the early running than trying to keep that low line. It all comes down to how your car is set up. Of course, we're talking about 2 different philosophies here of setup. So, you know, the amount of downforce you have in the car, what kind of balance you have in the car, what kind of adjustments he's made in this last pit stop. And it looks like Pavelski really is just trying to take care. Well, maybe not. Here he comes, going to try and make a move on Trost now. Got the inside on him and easily coasts by. Trost not making much of a fight there. Just slots back into second in front of Tim Holgate. So the 3 of these guys on the dance now. And looks like now that the pit stops have worked their way around, we'll go take a look at the field here. And Pavelski, of course, holding point right now. Trost right behind him. Holgate's right behind them, all within a tenth of a second of each other. Paul Jennings quite a bit behind here. He's about 1.5 seconds behind that group. Joe Branch in 5th, about 4 seconds behind Jennings. So you can definitely see that first 3 breakaways is making a difference here. Jennings kind of hung out to dry all alone out there in 4th. And really nobody to move with, and he's steadily losing time here. Meanwhile, 6th and 7th kind of embroiled in the battle. Eric Davis and Brian Simpson and Tim Doyle. Well, it looks like Brian Simpson is there. We've got a lap car of, that's not Joe Branch and Eric Davis, so I'm taking a look. Oh, yeah, okay, so those 3 are all 3 of those guys together. Branch, Eric Davis, and Simpson. 5, 6, and 7th, Davis, Branch, and Simpson. Tim Holgate about 2 seconds behind that, being harassed by Vic Caudill, and Gary Borkenhagen right behind them. So little groups of cars are kind of working their way around here. And this is really the way you're going to try and close the field back up, is to work drafts and see if you can't make some time on these guys. But Mac Pavelski in the lead, looking at 23.946. Just heard him on the radio. I'm not sure if he's maybe thinking about making a stop here.
To see his pit stops did just happen, but yeah, it's definitely interesting the way the pit stops just shook up the entire field of this race, because before those pit stops, we saw basically a big train of about 10 cars in the top 10, all more or less nose wing to gearbox, but now the pit stops happen, and now suddenly it is like a set of 3, and then a few second gap, and then a set of 3, and then a few second gap. So really, really interesting to see the field change that much just in the single pit stop.
Meanwhile, lead group now led by Brandon Trost. Looks like Pavelski was on the radio just telling Trost to go ahead and take point. So no harm, no foul there. They're in the lead. But meanwhile, they're catching up to the slower car, Randy Krosno. Randy Krosno having a tough day out there today. And looks like he's gotten checked up a little bit here trying to get around Krosno. Krosno, of course, entitled to his line. He has no obligation to get out of these guys' way by altering his line. He's definitely entitled to where he wants to drive on the track. Next turn looks like he goes ahead and gives way to these guys, so they continue on their way. But checked them up a little bit. Might help the Eric Davis trio try and catch up a little bit here.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Krosno, though, is always a respectful guy on the track, and he'll generally, if he's having a tough day, get out of the way of people who are having a faster and just better day. But it'll be interesting to see. Something we're not really seeing, though, here is a lot of Banshee cars are towards the back of the track here, Paul, and what do you think might be the cause of that? Not really a lot of the usual suspects up in the front.
Yeah, it looks like the Banshee Aero X crew definitely having a tough go over here at Texas. Just looks like they may have just missed out on the setup. We'll have to try and see if we can't talk to them a little bit later and see what the deal is here. But just kind of looks like those cars are about maybe 4/10 off the pace, and of course at a place like this, that equates to a pretty hefty deficit. Taking a look here at trying to find Eric Davis. Eric Davis is the lead Banshee car. He's in 7th. And he's turning laps at 24.1, so we're looking at, about 2/10 off from the lead. So not really spectacular. I mean, he's keeping pace. Really what these guys, the Banshee guys, need is a yellow to try and pack this track back up. But we're not seeing that. This definitely has a green flag feel to it, Randy, and looks like these guys are definitely putting on a good show.
Yeah, I mean, it's had a green flag feel for about the past 60 laps. I believe that first yellow came out on lap 9. We're now working lap 68, halfway done. That one's halfway in the book. So we might say stay green here the rest of the way. Maybe I'd give it some of the commentators' curse there, but this is definitely looking like it might go green to the end with the way the gaps are working and the way everyone's driving. Everyone's being respectful yet aggressive. So.
Yeah, good show indeed. These guys definitely showing what this 16th Street League is all about. Lead pack coming up to Brian Krasuski here, run 24.2s. A respectable pace for Krasuski, but of course, again, 1/10 off over the length of the race makes a big difference. It's like, Trost kind of got a little squirrely there trying to keep it low. So it remains to be seen now what's going on with Trost's car. That car, like in mid-run, is starting to get a little bit dicey on the turn exits when he has to pinch it down a little bit. This could make a difference later on if he gets into a knife fight with Pavelski and Holgate. Some benefit to holding these guys down, and it is certainly a strategy to have. Of course, it takes an immense amount of trust of the driver below to know the limitations of his car and not push it. And we've seen this a lot in these races where if you can pinch a guy down to the bottom of the track, if his car doesn't hold, he has to lift out. So it's a valid strategy, but it is a risk. And what we may see employed here towards the end of the race is Pavelski trying to hold Trost down on that track, forcing him to lift to keep the car from floating up on the track and hitting him. And, of course, we're a little bit early on, 72 laps into this 142 lap event. So we're not that far into it yet. Still plenty of race to go. 140 laps. I don't know where I'm getting 142 from. 140 laps. So beyond halfway at this point. Another set of pit stops coming up shortly for the guys that stayed out, and we'll see what comes up over here.
Yeah, and talking about Trost and his car being loose, something interesting we're seeing is Holgate has kind of dropped off the back of this packet too. As he actually, as I say that, he brings it in a little bit closer to 3 and 4, but that could be a double-edged sword. He might be having issues similar to what Trost is in getting loose through the corners, or he might see the fact that Trost is getting loose and he's just giving himself a gap if something were to happen. But he seems to be reeling Pileski back in, so it'll be interesting to see if that's what's happening there. Because, I mean, Holgate's really been Holgate and Trost have been the constants in the top 3 And basically that third person has gotten shuffled around a couple times. It was Jennings at one point, it was Vic, and then now it's Matt Pileski. But Holgate and Trost have really been the constants in that top 3 fight the entire race. It'll be interesting to see if maybe Holgate's falling off here.
It does look like Holgate is steadily backing off of this group here. Not quite in trouble of losing the draft yet. He is holding on. But it does look like he is possibly backing that off. A couple of reasons possibly for that. Might be the handling's gone away, and he needs to back off to get a little more air over those wings to try and get the push to it dialed out. Of course, the more you push on these cars, the hotter those tires get. So Holgate may be backing off a little bit here to try and get the temperatures under control on those front tires and make another run for it. Another thing, of course, you mentioned, he may be seeing that Trost might be getting a little bit of trouble here. Space is time. And if Trost gets in trouble, this may benefit Holgate a bunch to be back there to be able to get a wide-angle view of what's happening and make an appropriate decision to avoid the carnage. We've seen it several times where the leader spins. You're so close to him, you have no choice but to hit him, and badness happens from there. So Holgate about 0.3 to 0.4 seconds behind Pavelski. Still well within the draft, playing conservative here at this particular moment. Meanwhile, Paul Jennings just desperate for a yellow at this point. 3 seconds behind now. Joe Branch about 4 seconds behind Jennings. So once you get past the first 3 cars, they are steadily making their way past. And you know Jennings is just doing a prayer hoping that a yellow comes out, and it's not him.
Oh, certainly, because he's the one out there who's alone right now. He doesn't have any draft partner in the front, doesn't have any draft partners behind, and if anything, either way is a group of 3 cars that are in some ways racing each other and in some ways working together. And that group behind him right now is Brian Simpson and Joe Branch. And the way they're going back and forth right now, I wouldn't say they're working together. They're basically trading that spot every single lap. One lap it'll be Joe Branch in 5th, and the next lap it'll be Brian Simpson. And as I say that, they traded again on the timing. So it'll be interesting to see if these guys maybe calm it down a bit to try to catch up to that 4th position of Paul Jennings.
That fight actually a 3-car battle. Branch, Simpson, and Davis all vying for 5th spot. And looking at, it looks like Holgate is, okay, producer tells me Holgate's back in the dice here, and sure enough, looks like while we were away for that 2 seconds, Holgate managed to reel himself right back in there and was threatening Trost for a little bit, got inside of him, thought better of it, got inside there and maybe had a little bit of a push back to back out. But now the end result is they've given Pavelski a bit of a space now. Brendan Trost and Holgate about half a second behind Pavelski. Pavelski, meanwhile, is catching up to Jack Turner and is going to lap him. Also, Michael Peters in that group. But Pavelski is getting a draft off of Jack Turner and is compounding that the situation with Holgate and Trost, trying to get away from him there. So this lap traffic could actually become a factor here at this point with enough space between Pavelski and Trost.
Yeah, this will be interesting because I don't think at any point we have not seen Pavelski actually lead the group. He's always been in 2nd or 3rd place. At least he hasn't led it for any extended period of time. So he may have his car set up to actually just work better in that dirty air, and that when he gets in clean air, he just kind of doesn't have that knife edge pace that maybe Trost or Holgate do.
And Paul Jennings just brings his car into the pit, had enough of that, figures that if he's alone and out there and everything like that, he might as well just bring the car in, get some fresh tires, some fuel, and try a different strategy here. Maybe thinking the same thing we're thinking, that this is probably going to go green and work his way around. So lap 84 sees Paul Jennings into the pits. He's out after, let's see here, 9.9 seconds. Not a terribly great pit stop, but
Pavelski's bringing his car down right now.
Matt Pavelski.
Pavelski, it looks like he actually struggled to keep it down under the apron there. I think he may have drifted back up onto the banking there. Have to take another look at that, but he actually did. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any penalties for him for that. That could be a huge mistake for Matt.
So Pavelski, of course, you have to keep it down below that white line while you're entering the pits. You cannot have it sweep back up onto the pit lane. The rules are you have to start. Ooh, and Pavelski cockeyed in there. I don't know if is he up on the jacks? I'm not sure if he's too far forward. No, he is up on the jacks, so he's fine. Getting out of there is going to be interesting, though. He does manage to sweep it around, but he may have lost some time there. So just a terrible, terrible set of events for Pavelski. Drifting up, trying to get into the pits, and now kind of a bizarre way of getting in and out of the pits may have cost him a little bit more time. Now trying to get up to speed here and exit on the backstretch. Looks like he did that without too much drama. But stewards are definitely going to be taking a look at Pavelski's entry here, and we'll hear something shortly whether or not they're going to assess any sort of penalty towards him.
Up in Holgate exiting the pits right now as well. Brandon Trost, we should be expecting to see him down probably in the next 8 laps or so, as that's been the difference for them. But it's interesting. Every pit stop we've seen from the top 3, there's someone who makes a mistake. We haven't really seen a pit stop where any of our leaders really get out without making a potentially race-ruining mistake. Trost obviously, got lucky when he clipped the wall, and if Pavelski gets a penalty here, that's more or less game over with about 50 or so laps left to go in this event. Nerves, you think it might be Paul getting to them, or do you think there might be something else deeper with the weather and the way the apron is?
Maybe just changing track conditions here. Looked like Tim Holgate got a good exit out of pit row, but Pavelski with the hotter tires and the momentum is right back up in his business within 2 laps. So what started as a deficit of over 2 seconds, suddenly Pavelski is right in the grill of Tim Holgate, and they're back to dancing again. So we'll see if we can get Brendan Trost back into that mix-up and see where he's at on the track. Brendan Trost just coming out of, looks like, turn 2. So that is, he's still pretty far away. I don't think he's made his stop yet. I'm not exactly sure. Randy, do you know if he stopped yet?
Trost or?
Trost.
No, he hasn't stopped yet. He's one of those groups that pit about 9 laps, or they pit with the yellow, so they have about 9 laps more fuel than Holgate, Pileski, and Jennings. That's why we saw this 3 just come down pit road, and he's pitting right now.
And he's pitting right now. Here comes Trost into the pits. Tries to slam that car down, 150 miles an hour coming on that flat spot of track. Braking while turning, very, very tricky here. Tries to get us slowed down to the pit speed of 50 miles an hour. Does so, and looks like car ahead of him is Dan Liench, and then Randy Crosnell's car is broken, so he's not going. Well, I don't know what's going on with Randy Crosnell. All right, Brandon Trost going to go ahead. Trost into his box now, up in the back. It's a much better entry in Trost this time around. Doesn't bean the wall. 4 tires and fuel, and he is out and on the gas again, right behind Dan Liench. We'll see if Ench gives him any sort of room at all. This could be an impact because we know that Trost, and here he comes trying to get around. Ench is going to wisely keep on the inside and let Trost around. Oh, Trost manages to get up above the line just before he gets into the backstretch. Kind of a little iffy there on the exit. That could upset the car a whole lot. But the end result is Trost has got, at this point, about 2 seconds at Holgate and Pavelski. But we've seen this before where that's going to close up awfully quickly. So we'll see how long it takes. Of course, Holgate and Pavelski both on warm tires and have that momentum. So you can see already they're starting to close that gap on Trost. So within another lap or 2, we're going to be back to the trio here and back to business as usual for this portion of the race. And getting information from the booth here that, well, Randy, let me know what's going on with Trost.
Yeah, right now it's looking, they're pitting about every 40 or so laps. And that would put Trost where he would need to pit again somewhere around lap 33, lap 132. And this being a 140-lap event, he'd be about 8 laps short. So these guys that, they're going to have to make, they're going to be able to pit maybe 10 laps or so later. That might put them in the green. Those guys that decided to stay out may have made a very, very wise decision with that early yellow flag, knowing that if it did go green, they would put themselves in an advantageous position. And then suddenly we'd be talking about Paul Jennings, who dropped down really from our top 3 where we saw him earlier in the race. He dropped down to 5th. Suddenly he'd be looking at a 3rd place finish as well.
So how this fortunes change. And of course, all we're talking about, all of this, a yellow flag changes that picture radically. And let's consider now, of course, Trost is obligated to stop. He is not going to make it. There's no way he's going to make 8 laps on a yellow worth of fuel. So now we think about fuel conservation. Trost doesn't really pay off for him. He's just going to have to hope that he can make it. The guys behind him, You know, I mean, we're talking about, you know, I mean, they maybe not.
Yeah, that's really going to be the gamble, is whether or not those other 3 guys can make it. And while Trost and the rest of the field, they're looking at about an 8-lap gap. The rest of the guys, they're probably going to be looking at about a 1 to 2 lap gap. I can see someone making up 1 to 2 laps of fuel, but like you're saying, 8 laps of fuel, that's a lot of miles at 220 miles an hour.
A couple of things to consider here. You know that we've been watching Pavelski heavily hanging behind somebody the entire race. So it stands to reason Pavelski may have, early on in the race, decided to start trying to conserve some fuel here. Of course, when you're in the draft and you're tight up against another car, you'll consume less fuel than the car in front of you. So running in a pack, though it may not necessarily translate to faster speeds in this particular instance, will translate into better fuel mileage. Now we're talking about 1 to 2 laps. If this race goes green, it is a very, very difficult proposition to make up 1 to 2 laps worth of fuel just from fuel conservation in this car with the size of the tank that we have. However, if we get a yellow, it looks like Dan Liench is going to go ahead and try and make a move up here. So more of a credence to the idea these guys are definitely in fuel conservation mode, and Dan Liench has definitely found something here in his car. Unfortunately, Dan, of course, 1 lap down, but is certainly showing some signs of life here. Jim Leclerc getting overhauled now by Tim Holgate and Pavelski, and of course Ench. So, of course, you know, this IndyCar, we don't have Lucky Dog. So if Dan's going to get his lap back, he's going to have to do it all on his own. So he's got a long way to go here, but he could put himself back into the fray if he does that. But we're running out of time here. 1:03, so 37 laps left to go here, and looks like Trost is holding on to that 4-second lead. Tim, 1 second lead. Trost is 1 second ahead of Holgate and Pavelski. Doesn't look like Holgate Pavelski really making or losing any time here, running in the 23.8s. So Trost is 23.833 the last lap. Holgate 23.989. Pavelski 23.864. So they're right in the wheelhouse. They're really not letting Trost get away. But on the other hand, they're not in a real big hurry to get up to him.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. And just for everyone who's wondering on our fuel window, everyone at this point, anyone who comes down pit lane can make it to the end of this event. We're going to step aside, go to a quick commercial break here, and we're going to go from the end of that all the way back to the checkered flag at this event. We'll be seeing you back shortly here on Race Spot TV.
And welcome back to the 9th round of the 16th Street League iRacing IndyCar race. This is brought to you by IndyCar, Racer Magazine, and of course iRacing.com. And Randy, we're yellow. We're still trying to figure out what exactly happened here. I don't see any particular carnage on the track, but I do see The three leaders, we've got Trost, Holgate, and Pavelski, all three coming in. Looks like Paul Jennings is going to stay out here, so interesting times indeed.
Perhaps. Actually, no, Paul Jennings came down. That's actually the orange car of Danley Inch that you're saying. The cars do look relatively similar. I actually thought the same thing. I was like, why is Paul staying out? But yeah, we're not really sure what happened. Maybe a debris caution or something, really unsure, but this caution more or less wipes away any questions Brandon Trost had of not being able to make it. But in some ways, Trost's fear of not being able to make it on gas goes away, but suddenly his big lead goes away as well. So it solves one problem but creates another. Is he going to bunch the field right back up, Paul?
Well, this is exactly the break that Paul Jennings wanted. He was desperately looking for that yellow flag. And, yeah, as you say, we've got, of course, Trost's fuel woes are now ended, and we're into a horse race here now. Nobody's got any issues with fuel, and we're going to look at pretty much a knockdown drag out from here on out. So any hopes of that endurance race we were talking about, not happening. This is going to be full rich, pedal to the metal, and let it all hang out. Going through here, looks like the lap cars now going ahead and making their stops. So going to go ahead and let that sort out, and then we'll give you the rundown of the field here. And still 2 laps to go before we go back to green here. So looks like we've got Brendan Trost. Of course, the lead car here is that's going to be Danley Inch. When the lights go out on the car, Dan's of course going to get his lap back since he's ahead of the leader, and will make his way around. So this kind of a boon for Dan here. He gets back to the lead lap, so this is good for him. Brandon Trost in the lead, and Tim Holgate behind him. Pavelski in third. Paul Jennings fourth. Vic Caudell up in fifth now. Gary Borkenhagen with the haven't talked much about him, but quietly has made his way up to sixth. Joe Branch in seventh, Brian R. Simpson in eighth, Eric Davis, the lone Banshee car in the top 10, ninth, and Bradley Walters makes out your top 10. Flanagan, Mull, and Manifest, 11th, 12th, and 13th. Christian Steele, another Banshee driver, in 14th. And then Tim Doyle in 15th with Tim Miller lap car between them. So everybody bunched up here now. Things are going to get very, very interesting.
Yeah, certainly indeed. And we're getting reports from some radio traffic. The incident that brought up the yellow was Michael Peters exiting the pit lane, spun and hit the inside wall. So unfortunate for him that his race is now done. But thankfully for Michael, we should get ourselves a pretty interesting race in here. The lights out on the iRacing.com pace car, and the lap cars of Danley Inch, who decided to stay out, will get the wave around. So getting ready to go back green here, Paul, and strategy was playing a big factor in this race up until now. Now it's just suddenly going to come down to speed. And looking at speed, who do you think's your favorite here?
Well, you can't discount Brendan Trost, but at this particular moment, any of those first 5 cars can be, and it looks like, looking at the replay now, it just showed Peters hitting the wall here. So thank you to the producers for that. But kind of a tough way to end the day for Peters, and he's got to be frustrated after putting in so much work. Pace car making his way through third here. Anyway, to answer your question, it is a crapshoot, and it is going to be a crapshoot. What the question is not so much for the first 30 laps, can these guys keep it clean? Because, as I said before, these guys were pretty gentlemanly here in the beginning of the race, but not so much anymore. And pace car now making his way out of turn 4, makes the hard left into the pits, and immediately Brandon Trost on the gas, but Holgate not taking the bait, sticking right close to him, and Pavelski right behind them. Looks like Jennings just a little bit taking a nap there on the start, just falling back a little bit. We'll see if he can catch up. Don't want to get too far behind. 0.6 so far. You don't want to lose that draft. But immediately looks like these guys are starting to dice around up in front. And so Brandon Trost up front. Looks like Holgate's now taking second. Pavelski in third. And Holgate already kind of testing that outside line, see how the track is, and seeing if he can make some kind of move here. Meanwhile, back in the pack, Caudill is trying to make his way around the outside of Gary Borkenhagen. Not too much luck there, but that's packing up Joe Branch behind him. Looks like Borkenhagen now just getting on the inside of Paul Jennings. Makes that stick. Kind of surprised Jennings a little bit. I don't think he was expecting that move. They're side by side down through the middle here and through this tri-oval. Tricky. It's very tricky for this tri-oval. You think that it's a nice wide track, but you have to have a lot of trust about where your car is. I've seen a lot of incidences in that front that front kink up there where you kind of misjudge. You can clout somebody real easy up there.
Yeah, at these speeds, that tri-oval can get really, really narrow real quick, and that was a very aggressive and very bold move by Gary Borkenhagen. And that was very nice he was able to make that stick, getting himself up into that fourth position. We really haven't talked about him all day, but he's really kept himself up here near the front most of the race. As now we're going to see Vic try to go back to the outside, and it looks like Joe Branch might be thinking about going 3 wide down on the inside, thinks better of it. And Paul Jennings getting shuffled back here to about 7th, 8th place. He's just now sitting here, and he's just watching all these guys just going crazy in front of him.
Yeah. Looked like for a second there Branch was thinking about splitting Borkenhagen, decided the better of it. Not so much for that yet. Meanwhile, looks like Vic Caudill and Branch are getting awfully close to each other in those turns here. Caudill really trying to keep that car to the bottom. Limited amount of time you can do that before those tires start to give up on you, and you've got to try and figure out some other way to try and get around here. Meanwhile, it looks like Brendan Trost, Tim Holgate, Matt Pavelski still kind of dicing around up there. Nobody making any real big moves yet up there. And, well, now, as I say that, Holgate on the outside of Trost looks like he's going to try and make that stick. Now, Trost looks like, as I was telling you, Trost is starting to drift. He gets into that inside line. Car starts to drift up a little bit. Holgate saw it coming, luckily, and moved up. But if he was side by side, he might not see that happening. So it's really incumbent on Trost to understand the limitations of his car and try not to hit Holgate. A very dicey proposition, but definitely Holgate giving a lot less room now than he did before, and is trying to get into the head of Brendan Trost. Meanwhile, Pavelski, again, sitting back, watching the show, trying to figure out where he can make his move. Meanwhile, Borkenhagen, Joe Branch, Caudill, and Jennings, that three, are slowly trying to close their way up. They're within less than a second from Pavelski now. So if this keeps up and these guys keep dicing around like this, they may find themselves, and it looks like actually Borkenhagen and Branch have kind of broken away into a twosome here. But that whole group could end up in this dance here before too much longer.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. What we haven't seen, though, up front is they've been dicing back and forth, but they actually have not been trading the spots at all. Trost has held the lead since the restart, even though Holgate's basically been throwing everything he possibly could at the wall to try to make it stick. He just can't get the momentum on the outside. Like you were saying, Trost likely made a pretty big aero adjustment to get that car as slippery as possible, to make it where they can't get by or make it exceedingly more difficult, knowing this would be the last run of the coming to the checkered flag. If Holgate gets a big run on the outside out of 2, it'll be interesting to see if he makes it work. Going through 3 and 4, he falls back a little bit, but if he can keep up the momentum here, he might have a move to maybe make down into 1 and 2. Going through the quad oval side by side. And Matt Pileski still just, sitting there watching these two just battle back and forth, maybe playing the smarter card here of not burning up his stuff.
Pavelski definitely playing in the catbird seat here, taking a watch and seeing what transpires here. Very risky at this point in the game to try and it looks like Branch is trying to pin down Brandon Trost a little bit. Not so much to make the move, but to maybe try and wear him down and get him to, you drive in the mirrors. It gets a little more difficult to try and pay attention to what exactly you're doing. It looks like Brandon Trost has definitely adopted a very defensive line now, keeping that car in the middle of the track down the backstretch to see where he puts that car. Definitely taking that defensive line, not letting that car squeak out into the wall now. Content to let Holgate have that outside line, knowing that as long as he can stay up front and have that arrow, that he can stay out there. But if he makes one small mistake at this point and Trost ends up behind somebody with all the arrow that he may have taken off the car, if he ends up in that dirty air, may end up finding himself in a lot of trouble. Meanwhile, in the back, Joe Branch, Gary Borkenhagen, really kind of in a knife fight at this point, and Jennings, the benefactor of that, looks like he's caught right back up to those guys. So Jennings now right behind Borkenhagen, Branch up in the lead of that pack, but not for long. Here comes Jennings on the inside on Borkenhagen, and he goes ahead and takes up that 5th spot. And Vic Caudell trying to follow Jennings through there and see if he can make it work.
Yeah, there's a lot of moves right now, and there's a lot of knife fights going on right now. We're just waiting to see which of them brought the gun to the knife fight. And I'm thinking Matt Pileski might have something here. Although Brandon Trost is driving very well defensively, he's positioning his car exceedingly well so that Tim Holgate always has to go to the outside and gets no chance of getting a run up the inside. As again, Holgate's going to be on the outside going through into turn 1 and 2. What Holgate really needs to try to do here is try to get down to the inside of Brandon Trost. I don't think an outside move is going to work. I think like we've been saying, yeah, that's very, very close.
It looked like he really wanted to. It looked like Holgate really was in a position maybe to get cut down across the back of Trost here and get behind him, but realized that he was just about 2 inches too far into the car. And instead of lifting and trying to make the move, he just held on to that and just stayed out there. But the end result is awfully close to making contact there. And you know, we're gonna see Holgate. You know, Holgate is one of these guys. He will give you as much room as you need and not a centimeter more. So a lot of trust between these guys. But these guys have a lot of miles on the track with each other. They know what they're doing. They know each other's style and they know the limitations. So we're going to see, and it does look like, as a result of the defensive line, of course, you know, Trost is burning off a lot of speed coming out of the corner. So Holgate is getting the better exit. So you see him every lap. He does kind of come up abreast of Trost and is able to come up beside him. But what Holgate really needs to do here is he needs to time his exit so that he can make an over-under move and try to get under Trost. You know, of course, Trost, once he adopts that center line, he cannot make a move to block Holgate. That's an illegal move. So if Holgate comes down to the inside, Trost cannot make a move to block him. He will be penalized by the stewards if he does that. So, you know, Trost is entitled to whatever line he adopts. You know, you see he's in the middle of the track. Now, if Holgate decided to go to the inside and cut across, Trost can't make a move to make that block. Meanwhile, while I'm talking here, guess who's back? Guess who's coming to dinner? Looks like Branch and Jennings have now made it a fivesome, caught up to Pavelski, and Pavelski is now feeling some heat from behind. So his idea of sitting back and watching the show now suddenly in grave danger of turning into a race for himself. As Branch made a move on the inside, thought better of it, and adopted it outside. Jennings looks like he's taking a wide in, shallow out. And he's trying to get, and it looks like he does have an angle on Branch. See if he can make that work.
Yeah, that certainly could be the case. Now, Matt Pileski is our points leader, so that might be why we see him running so conservatively here. Tim Holgate is in second. Brandon Trost, he's in fifth, and he's really in a position where I don't think he's really in position to really win the championship. But Holgate and Pileski being so close here in the championship, I would not be surprised to see Pileski just get a third place, you know, run safe and make sure he gets those consistent points. Holgate, he really needs to come back. I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to make something drastic happen. As we are coming up now, about to be 5 to go here in the next couple, at the end of this lap, and it's going to be the fastest hand of cards you've ever seen. As everyone's hands are on the table. This is getting interesting here, Paul. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, the gloves are off, and you're going to see what these guys have at this point. 5.5 laps to go now, and we're going to see what, if anything, Tim Holgate actually has for Trost. Oh, look at this! Maybe he's going to make that outside stick suddenly. He's got a nose on him, and he is going to. Yes, he is going to lead this lap. So Tim Holgate, at least temporarily, in the lead now. And now, well, of course, now he gets into turn 2, kind of slows back a little bit, and can't get the line he wants. Mean result is Pavelski's now right into the mix there. And,
yeah, but Holgate's going to be able to get to the inside. Oh, no, Trost shut the door on him. That may have been Holgate's one chance that may have just disappeared as we're now within 5 to go.
Whoa, and Jennings just about caught the wall coming out of 4 there. Very, very close to pancaking the wall. And you can see it kind of spooked him a little bit. He dropped back just a little bit. Didn't lose too much speed. Now, Tim Holgate dropped back now. He's about 1/10 of a second behind, reassessing the situation. You know, the outside line hasn't been working, but he has been conserving tires out there. Less of a strain on the car, less of a strain on the tires to stay out in that area. Now we're 3 laps to go. Back to the outside here. Holgate's going to give it one more run But looks, he may be trying an inside out here. Let's see what he does. Oh, doesn't quite have the room to do that. Meanwhile, Jennings has made a move on Pavelski. Pavelski may be relegated to fourth here. We'll see what happens. But he's trying to keep that car to the bottom. So racing all along this the front 6 cars here. This is your race with 3 laps now to go. 2 laps to go, correct? 2 laps left. And Trost just desperately hoping that he can keep Tim Holgate out from the inside of him. I really
and
think
Pavelski gets shuffled back to 5th.
Pavelski now back to 5th. And Paul Jennings now up into the fight, now sizing up a Tim Holgate. As the white flag comes out, we're into the final lap. This is it. This is all the cards. Holgate again trying that outside on Trost. Keeps it a little bit further back, but Trost just slow enough where Holgate cannot get the inside out. So he may have to just try and outrun him here. Meanwhile, looks like Pavelski was going to try, or rather, Jennings was going to try the outside. Loses it to Branch at this point. Looks like it's going to be Brandon Trost, Holgate, then Branch, then Jennings. So amazing finish here. Brendan Trost desperately making the race of his life. That defensive line worked. Holgate never able to make any inroads on that. And Joe Branch, at the last possible second, manages to work over Jennings and gets 3rd. Meanwhile, Jennings 4th and Matt Pavelski in 5th. A good points-paying position for Pavelski. A very smart idea for Pavelski not to mix it up there.
Yeah, certainly. That was an extraordinarily close finish to that race. Your top 5 covered by under half of a second, and that was really expert car positioning by Brandon Trost there. He obviously had a disadvantage coming off the corners, keeping that thing to the inside, but because of that, Holgate got the runs and was never really in a position to where he could get the over-under going, and that was just extraordinarily well played by Brandon Trost. Very well driven and very well executed. Really one of the dominant car all day.
Now Brandon Trost having done donuts, now he's going to do his lap in reverse, the traditional lap in reverse as it's become. But he's doing it in the correct direction, so that's kind of interesting. Of course, other cars on the track, so this is more etiquette than anything else. So this is pretty much what we were expecting here at Texas, you know. I mean, these guys really could not get away from each other, and a great finish. You know, Tim Holgate less than 1/10 of a second behind. Joe Branch less than that behind Holgate. And just an amazing race for the first 6 positions. These guys really put a show on. I'm really impressed with Borkenhagen. Even though he did get 6th position, he really made a run for it. And it was an impressive run to be sure. But Brendan Trost dominates the race and brings home the victory.
Yeah, you talk about Borkenhagen, but Joe Branch as well was someone who was really not ever at the front throughout the entirety of the race, and he's not someone I don't think we ever talked about. And look, he comes up, finishes 3rd place, makes a very good move on Paul Jennings on the last lap through turn 3 and 4, because I think Paul was trying to make something happen coming off of 4, and Joe managed to take advantage of that and managed to slip by and get himself to 3rd place. There was just a lot of good driving there at the end of this event that made for a very exciting finish.
So running down your final race positions here in a 1 hour and 3 minutes, a very quick 140 laps here at the Texas Motor Speedway. That's 2 cautions. Brendan Trost brings it home in 1st. Tim Holgate a very close 2nd. Joe Branch in 3rd. Paul Jennings in 4th. Barely just got overcome by Joe Branch at the last lap there. An amazing bit of driving. Matt Pavelski worked his way back to 5th. Still an excellent showing for him considering the points position he's trying to protect. Gary Borkenhagen in 6th, and the last of that top 6 group. Vic Caudill in 7th with an impressive run. Eric Davis, the highest scoring Banshee driver, in 8th. Joe Flanagan 9th. Brian R. Simpson rounds up your top 10. Tim Doyle in 11th with what's got to be a disappointing run for him. Scott Manifold in 12th. Christian Steele in 13th. Dean Moll, an impressive run for him in 14th. Bradley Walters, the last car on the lead lap, in 15th. The rest of your field here at the showing up here on the screen. And so, Randy, I tell you, we've seen, this is the first mile and a half we've seen here, and I think that it's certainly shown what we can expect.
Yeah, I mean, it really has. This is really the only high-banked oval that's really on the schedule. Indianapolis is really the last race left, and I don't think anyone really defined Indianapolis as high-banked. Certainly high speed, but it'll be interesting to see how the type of racing, or how much the racing differs from tracks like Milwaukee and Phoenix and Indianapolis versus here at Texas. Texas was obviously much more packy and much more draft-oriented, but we're going to jump to commercial break, take you to the rest of this post-race coverage, as well as some interviews with the winners, as well as some of the other drivers that took part in this event. So we will be back here for the conclusion of the coverage for the 16th Street Racing League event here at Texas Motor Speedway.
Yes, it all starts here. It's opening day for the Verizon IndyCar Series.
From St. Petersburg, Florida, new cars, some new faces, and an old, solid group of veterans and winners.
Get ready, stay with them here.
They call it the Valley of the Sun. They're running laps at 155 miles an hour.
Long Beach, California, a beautiful destination city with a huge sandy beach, great marinas, cruise ships, and once a year, the Verizon IndyCars.
The spectacular, undulating Barber Motorsports Park Indy Grand Prix of Alabama.
The acceleration begins.
The new champion of the Grand Prix of Indianapolis is...
Everyone wants to win. Only one will.
And with those millions watching around the world.
By the way, it's the biggest race of your lives, gentlemen.
Here in the Motor City, in the first of the duel in Detroit.
Business is picking up at turn 7 at Belle Isle. And the green flag waves at Texas Motor Speedway.
All right, let's go.
Wheel to wheel at 210 miles an hour.
And Honda versus Chevy.
Green flag in the Air Green. Sebastian Bourdais is the leader. In the core of America's heartland is a tiny track that packs a speedy IndyCar punch like no other.
Green, green, green.
Well, let's go racing in Iowa.
He needs a penalty.
This is Indy Toronto and the green flag flies.
Where he's making a move, but he's going to make him go to the west.
Deep into turn 3. And maybe too deep.
To the Buckeye State. Drivers, start your engines!
There is a giant crowd at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course.
All right, that's it. That's it. Excellent job, young man. Excellent job. You won Mid-Ohio.
The tricky triangle is definitely very tricky.
Look at this pack now.
He's not giving him anything. That's how you're supposed to race.
For the Labor Day weekend of 2016, we will welcome and host the Grand Prix of Boston.
It's the Indy Grand Prix of Sonoma. It's the championship decider. It's time to bring the action.
Race fans, there they are.
And welcome to the IndyCar post-race show for the 16th Street Racing League, iRacing.com Racer event. Ninth round of this 11-round series, and we're here now with Brendan Trost, the race winner, 1 hour 3 minutes in time. And Brandon, you pretty much dominated the whole show here. 107 laps I show you led. And how did the car feel out there?
I got lucky with the weather being cold, and it felt all right for the first half of a stint. And the second half, my car was really loose, much more than anyone else, so I just had to keep the lead. I got behind someone.
You're breaking up a little bit there, Brennan.
All right, well, here. Sorry about that. Maybe this is a little better. Basically, my car was a little bit too loose at the end of a stint, and I was just for a short run at the end, and we didn't get that.
And, we were looking at the strategy. Yellow comes out after 9 laps, and you decided to go ahead and duck in and get some, what did you do? Randy?
I'll jump in here. So we were talking about the strategy, and obviously we had that early yellow me and Paul both unable to English. About 9 laps in, and we were theorizing that if it had stayed green, you would have had to make a pit stop with about 8 or 9 laps left in the event. Were you kind of maybe hung out to dry if that had stayed green?
No, I wasn't hung out to dry, but yeah, I was definitely going to have to pit. By my calculations, everyone was pitting there. So the best strategy for me was just to keep myself up front, and I could pit whenever I wanted, luckily, because I had more gas than the guys around me.
So you were talking about how you needed to keep yourself out front, and obviously you were leading when that last yellow came out. We were also talking that it looked like you made a pretty aggressive aero change at the end of that, or on that last pit stop, so you could have kept the lead there. Is that what actually happened? Because you definitely looked faster in that last 30 laps than you did through the rest of the event.
No, I didn't make any car adjustments. The only thing I messed with the whole entire race was weight jacker and mostly going negative because my car was too loose. Yeah, there was no wing change.
That's certainly interesting. Last thing I think I'm going to ask you here, new build, and this is the first race on the new build. How's everything looking from your perspective? What's changed, what hasn't, and how well were you able to get prepared for this event?
I can't tell you what's changed yet. Obviously, the tires changed a lot, but I don't really know how that's going to affect the racing yet. I've run 2 races and had by far one of the best cars in both, but, I don't really know how it's going to work yet. Hopefully, it's fun racing, but I don't know.
All right, so that's Brandon Choster, winner of this event. Anyone you'd like to thank, Brandon, before I throw it back to Paul and he tries to interview Holgate?
Well, everyone on Team Velociraptor, obviously. Let's see here. Brian Spots, Adam Dock, Chris Stouffer, Miguel Angel Martinez, Matteo, I'm probably... Ricardo. That's what I can think of off the top of my head, but...
All right, well, congratulations on the win, Brendan. Very well drove. You dominated the whole event. And now I'm going to throw it over to Paul Jenkins, who's now interviewing Mr. Tim Holgate.
Thanks, Randy. I'll attempt not to derp this one. Little technical difficulties in the middle of it. I went to go look at my notes, and they were gone. So no idea what Brendan did, but I'm back in the game here. Hey, Tim, second place finish, and we'll talk about the beginning first, and we'll get to the end. Very interesting finish to this race, but the first pit stop, or the first yellow that came out, you elected to stay out. A rather unpopular decision, but it turned out didn't make much of a difference. But what was the strategy there?
Well, you don't ever want to put yourself back in the middle of the pack on a track with new tires and everything where you're not 100% sure how everyone's going to race. This race usually has a fair amount of cautions, and you don't want to get caught back in there. So with only a handful of laps on our cooler temperatures, I didn't feel like there was going to be any big advantage from getting tires at that point. Looking at the fuel strategy, I knew we were going to be, we were going to have about, if we went green from there, we are going to have about a 20-lap stint at the end, which was even for fuel and tires. So it didn't make any sense to me to pit. I figured that more people would have stayed out. It's interesting that the only person who stayed out other than me and Paul was Matt, but, it is what it is, and that early in the race doesn't really hurt that much.
Absolutely, and it was an interesting strategy, and it made for good conversation here. And had the race gone green, it really would have made things extremely interesting. But as it turns out, of course, that late race yellow and turned it all into a sprint race, which brings me towards the end of the race here. And I saw that throughout the race, of course, Brendan started adopting that defensive line, and you were working him on the outside. What was that more of a car performance decision, or was that an attempt to try and get on the inside, and with the runs you were getting, found it difficult?
Oh, well, the idea was basically, if he wanted to run the defensive line, I was going to make him run as tight a defensive line as possible. The idea being just basically make him put in a little bit more wheel every lap. If you do that the entire stint, your tires will start to go off, and that's really what I was going for. I wasn't expecting to make the pass in the first 20 laps. I just wanted to keep him to a line that wasn't ideal. And that started to work out. It just, I just didn't have enough straight line speed at the end. We got side by side a little bit ahead a couple times, but there just wasn't quite enough oomph to get it all the way around. I figured if we gotten around him, we probably would have taken off because we had a really good long run car tonight. But so it wasn't enough. Brandon did a really great job. I mean, he didn't drift up at all into me. It was really clean. So I mean, kudos to him. Congratulations on the win.
Yeah, fantastic driving by all you guys. Talking about points now, we're looking at you are 29 points behind Matt Pavelski, and going into the road course here, and how do you feel about your prospects going into Watkins Glen, of course, after that Indy?
Well, obviously, Watkins is a favorite track of almost everyone. I think me and Matt are always very, very close in times there, so I think that's going to be one heck of a battle. It'll be interesting to see whether or not anybody else who's kind of dropped out of the series for a couple weeks will be coming back, because that's a really, really fun track to race in this car, and it's going to be really exciting running with the new tires and the new differential fix they've got on there. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's actually going to be pretty close, because I'm down a drop week on Matt, so it's actually, if you look at it and take the drop weeks into account, I think it's only 7 points difference. So it's going to come down to the wire.
Of course, the points get sorted out with the drop weeks, and we'll have more details on that. And so, Tim, Indy in a couple of weeks here. Everyone's favorite race. You think a lot about what you're going to do with this. Has your team done any testing there yet? How do you feel about the car there?
Oh, I think everyone's always got some testing going on at Indy. I mean, it's just a given that everybody's always thinking about big races like this one that's coming up. I mean, everyone's thinking about May, but we've done a little bit of work on it. I mean, you always get a new tire in there. You want to try it at some of the big name tracks, but don't want to give anything away yet. We always feel really good there. I mean, we always find a way to run fast there for the most part. We've had several wins, so I'm really looking forward to it. I mean, double points payout, that could turn it, anybody's ball game at that point. I mean, we could have people come from all the way back, and Brandon's still in this with double points. If me and Matt both get DNFs, so you don't have any idea what's going to happen.
All right, Tim, in conclusion, anybody you want to thank?
Absolutely. Got to thank Butto for keeping me comfortable in this chair. I want to thank Niles Andrews for putting together the qual setup today. He's been working on our qual setups the last couple of weeks, and it's really a big help to be able to focus on one side and have someone else do the other. And Vic Caudill for doing a lot of testing with the race setups we put together.
All right, Tim Holgate, second place finish here at Texas. Looking forward to the road course, and of course, right in the contention with the points. Going to be the one to watch. And Randy, you're over with Joe Branch. No, you're not. You're not with Joe Branch.
I'm over here with Matt Pileski, but Matt and Joe, they're pretty close names to mix up. But Matt, is a pretty good race for you. The pretty interesting race for you. There were times where you were kind of buried deeper in the top 10, and then there were times where you were right up there chugging along with the top 3, potentially going for the win. You came home in, I believe, 5th place. Pretty good finish for you, considering you wanted to keep some points. What was your strategy and mindset throughout the race?
I mean, early in the race, I had a slight issue with the antivirus software, so I missed the gridding. But I mean, from that point on, it was just try to get up front, save the tires, keep the car out of trouble, and then just hope for the best. And that first caution came out at the right time. I hadn't really burned up my tires at all. I was in clean air for 7 laps. Had it in negative weight tracker the whole time, so it was pretty stable. And at that point, it was just try to stay within sight of Tim, try to stay in front of him, and didn't really happen. Didn't really work out at the end. Still brought home in a top 5. Had the car in one piece. Still got the points lead. It's 7 points, but I like Watkins and I like Indy, so looking forward to it. And yeah,
liking Watkins and liking Indy. Those are not a very controversial opinion. What was your view of when that last yellow came out? Me and Paul were talking, and it looked like you guys may have been on obviously the group of 3 that stayed out with that first yellow. If it had stayed green, you may have had a pretty big advantage in terms of the fuel. Was that actually the case, or what do you think you, Tim, and everyone else would have had to pit as well?
I think we all would have had to pit. I was talking to some guys on my team speak that were running, and they had to pit as well, even if they pitted after we did. So I think we were all going to have to pit one more time. It was just a matter of who got the best pit ins, pit outs, who had to take the least amount of fuel.
Right, and of course the other big thing is the new tires. I asked Brandon about it, but what's your take on it? How are you liking the new tires? How are you liking the changes to the car in general?
I wasn't really liking them at Spa when I tested it, but I mean, it's kind of grown on me. I mean, it was very, I don't know how to, I wouldn't say it was pliable tonight. but the car definitely felt a lot more connected to the track. It moved around where you wanted it to move, and it could have been that the track was 94, 95 degrees, but I mean, I think the new tire is a big step up in terms of just overall grip compared to what we had earlier.
That's certainly good to hear. And again, fantastic finish for you, and congratulations on maintaining your points lead going into Watkins Glen next week. Any shout outs or anyone you'd like to thank?
I got to thank Chris Demerit and Ryan Norton. I didn't really have much time to work on it this week, and those guys were a big help. So when you're working till 9, it's kind of hard to work on setups. So yeah, I got to thank those two, and I just got to thank the rest of the guys on the team. You know, it's just when I missed the grid, it was nice to have a few voices in my ear just telling me to keep it calm and just focus on what was in front of me. So yeah, I got to thank the whole team. I got to thank Chris and Ryan specifically.
All right, so that's Matt Pileski, your 5th place finisher here at Texas. Some pretty interesting opinions there, Paul, from everyone. Different opinions on the tires and the changes to the car in general, and some ways we were proven wrong from when we were talking there in the booth. But overall, it was a pretty eventful race, don't you think?
I do. And to wrap up Matt's thing here, anybody you wanted to thank?
Me?
Yeah, you. Why not?
All right. I guess I'll thank Chris Demerit and Ryan Norton. So, yeah.
Did you just do that?
Yeah, you did.
I may or may not have just done that.
I heard what you heard. I was just, working through the notes here and figuring I'm going to, all right, you know what? This is 2 derps in a this is why we need a Will Vincent.
It's okay,
back.
Paul. 3 derps, you're out.
I'm missing the Colts fandom in the background here.
That's true.
It's killing me.
So the lack of Colts and the lack of Starbucks is severely hindering.
All right, so the tie is off and the scotch is poured. We're good here. So anyway, back to business here, Randy. We're looking at 2 very, very different races here, and it's very interesting to consider that this is the only 1.5. This is the last of the 1.5 miles. Well, this is really kind of the only one going into it. We've got Watkins Glen, of course, a very interesting road course, very popular, very tactical course in terms of trying to make passes, and then of course Indianapolis. Everyone knows all about that place, and we have a tight points battle here. And what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, Watkins is going to be interesting because Watkins, of course, with that big long back straightaway, basically flat out from turn 1 to the bus stop. It is a very draft-heavy track, and it's a track that everyone knows, that everyone loves, and everyone always comes out to play on. So Watkins can really almost go any way. Indianapolis is, of course, Indianapolis, and everyone's holding their cards tight to their chest. No one's wanting to show anything of what their pace is looking like there, and I'm sure that, although Watkins is the next race coming up, I'm sure everyone's getting their testing sorted for Indy already, just because that's such a huge event, and, obviously, with it being the last race of the season, it's where you need to be strong at. But it's Watkins is going to be, I think, the more interesting of the 2 races, just because it is arguably the simplest road course on the entire schedule.
And of course, we talk about the changes of the car throughout the broadcast here, and subtle changes for the car here on ovals, but very profound on the road courses. We're talking about the differential change, which has to do with how the back end of the car works. So the tires, of course, are different, and a couple of other subtle differences with the car, but they all add up to a rather profound difference in how the car handles on the road track. And I think we're going to see a lot of interesting racing here, much improved, and of course, a very tactical race too. Of course, we have Matt and Tim kind of in a knife fight. Brendan has to have a good showing here in order to stay in contention. Of course, Brendan not the strongest road course driver, but can hold his own. And if he can get a good finish at Watkins and catapult him into Indy, where he's extremely strong and a threat, we could have ourselves a 3-way battle here. Of course, we got Tim Doyle too is right in the mix. We know Tim is an Indy specialist.
Yeah, that's certainly the case. I mean, this is just the way the points are looking and the way the schedule is playing out. There's a lot of things that could happen based on people, on the way people, if people make any mistakes or if they don't have a good showing at one of these 2 races, it could completely change everything. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the end of this event, and hopefully I'll be able to commentate one or 2 more of these as we come to the end. It's been fun, Paul, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. This has been a blast. Unfortunately, Will Vincent being under the weather had to call off, and last minute scratch. Of course, we had Rachel with the pregame show, but unfortunately, she was having some technical issues and was not able. So, kind of Randy and I got called up from the minor leagues here and drafted into position. So. Did a pretty good job. Of course, Hugo, always a master behind the scenes, keeping us honest and keeping everything going here. Of course, I want to thank IndyCar and Racer Magazine for their untiring sponsorship of this series. Looking forward to a strong finish here in the series with Watkins Glen. Should hopefully see a couple of the regular IndyCar drivers show up for that event. And of course, Indy is going to be, of course, a 2-week event. We've got the qualifying and then of course the race, and we should see a lot of interesting names show up for that event.
Yeah, we certainly should, and of course, shout out to all the organizations you mentioned, IndyCar, and as well as Racer Magazine. But I think that's going to do us here at Race Spot TV. And after I'm done talking here, there's going to be some music that starts playing. We'll see you guys next week at Watkins Glen.